Have you ever wanted to get press for your business on a big publication or magazine or even a TV show? Today's guest, Christina Nicholson, did just that for her clients, securing them a spot on the Today Show amongst many other notable TV appearances for her clients. We're breaking down everything you need to know about the benefits of getting on these big publications and why that may not lead to a ton of money for you and what might work better instead. We're also going to be talking all about how you can create and craft your pitch to then go to these publications for story coverage and everything you need to know in between.
Hi, my name is Christina Nicholson. I'm a former TV reporter and anchor turned owner of a public relations agency. So now instead of being on TV, I help other business owners get on TV so they can promote themselves and their businesses without spending any money on advertising.
I absolutely love that because I'm such a huge fan of getting publicity, and I know you've gotten your clients on some really cool platforms, including the Today Show. So what do we need to know about getting on the Today Show? What happened with that story?
Yeah, so the Today Show is everybody's big goal because it's very notorious. Everybody knows the name. Everybody's seen the show. So I think I've gotten a few clients on the Today Show a few different times, but the first time was when I was working with a client, a couple of guys who started a fitness app. It was a running app. And they came to me, they said, hey, look, we hired a PR agency to get us attention. It's not really working. I said, well, show me what they're sending out. Let me see if I can help. And that publicist was sending out a long, boring press release that was all about the fitness app. And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of boring. No offense to your business, but there's a million fitness apps out there. There's so many apps that teach people how to run and whatever else. So instead, let's look for a better story. So these two guys, one was a personal trainer. So I said, perfect, we will use his expertise to get him coverage. The other guy used to be 400 pounds and he lost half of his body weight from running. So that kind of prompted him to start this app. So I said, that's what we're going to pitch. We're going to tell these stories and share your expertise. And then by default, the app is going to get promoted. Now, at this time, these guys were not making any money. They were losing money because they were in the software business and the app was free. They were working nights and weekends. So I just want to preface that because so many people think that they have to have this big brand and be making a lot of money and have a big team to earn exposure in places like the Today Show. And that's just not the case. So we started pitching these guys and, their stories. And we got them coverage in the Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, where they lived locally in Washington, D.C. And that got the attention of a producer at the Today Show. So the big story wasn't hey, here's this app. It was, hey, here's this guy who lost half of his body weight through running. Because of that, he created an app. And this is the app, and this is what the app does. So yes, the app got coverage, but we didn't lead with that because it's not the Today Show's job to promote their software. So instead, we just told a really cool story. And that is how they got coverage on the Today Show.
That's fantastic. And so you started with a series of smaller publications, smaller places to get that attention, and built up to the higher platforms that you wanted to target. So I absolutely love that you created this new story to tell. So it's not necessarily about buy my thing, here's the thing, but here's what we've accomplished, here's what we've done, here's a really good story. And because of that, here you can also look at this thing. So what steps should people take if that's something that they want to accomplish inside of their business as well?
Yeah, I definitely like the idea of starting local or starting small and working your way up. Yes, it's possible to go straight to big national, but it's rare. It's like going viral. Yes, it's possible to make a viral video, but it's rare. So luckily for these guys, their local market was Washington, D.C., which is huge. And you're more newsworthy where you live. So look at your local market and then you work your way up. So that's super important. And then also, the Today Show is, glitzy and full of glamour. However, there's lots of people who watch the Today Show who hate running. So we're not really reaching their ideal audience. We're more so reaching just tons of people and building credibility for the app. Their number one goal was to get in a magazine and a website called Runner's World, because obviously everybody who reads Runner's World likes to run. That's more their audience. And we did get them in that outlet. It took a few more months and different pitches, different angles and targets. But they were more appreciative of that coverage than the Today Show just because they were more likely to convert from that audience. So I also, like we busted the myth about, you have to be big and make lots of money to get coverage. You also aren't always going to see an ROI from the huge media outlets. You may see a bigger ROI from a more small niched media outlet. So when you are starting out, when you are looking to pitch local, also look to pitch niche, because if you are an expert in that industry, then it's going to be easy for you to get that coverage. And that is where your audience is. So don't get distracted, by the big names and all of that. Yes, it's great. You can turn that segment, if it's on TV, into, an ad, and then target your ideal customer or client, and that'll work wonders for you. But don't forget the little guys, because you could have a bigger ROI there as well.
And I think that's really important to point out, because while we do want the big, glitzy, glamorous platforms, it's not always going to bring us the right clientele or the best clientele. And so focusing on where our audience is going to be really, really important. So knowing your goals and knowing your strategy really does impact what you're going to do when you're getting that credibility and those credentials and that publicity. So let's step back a little bit. If somebody does have a goal of getting into a particular platform, whether it's something big like the Today Show, or it's something more niche like a magazine or a website that's specific to their industry, what are the first steps that people should take to get that local coverage to then build up?
I think the first thing you should do, and I'll kind of couple this with the biggest mistakes people make. So when I was a reporter and anchor, the biggest mistake people would make is they would write something very long and very promotional. Nobody has time to read things that are that long, and it can't be promotional because remember, you're earning this coverage. You're not paying for it, so it has to be newsworthy. So instead of just saying this is me, this is what I do, you should do something more along the lines of, this is what's happening in the world, or this is what's happening in this industry, or this is what's happening in our community, and I can assist in your storytelling of this happening for this reason. You kind of have to not think about promoting yourself. And I know you may think that defeats the purpose. Your promotion will come. I promise. It will come by default. If people like what they see, if they like what they hear, then they will seek you out. And just by default, your business, your product, your service is going to come up naturally in conversation. So don't make the mistake of writing something super long and promotional. Instead, I would advise you to think of, how is my expertise, my product, or my service newsworthy now? And that's the big thing. How is it newsworthy right now? If I write something and I send it to a local journalist in 1 month, is it going to appear dated? Because it should. It should appear dated. It should not be relevant in a couple of weeks from now. So I think that's the biggest thing people can do. A little trick that I have is go onto Google and search something that's relative to your industry, and then use the news filter, and then also use the filter for posts in the last month or the last week, and see what's happening in your industry. What are the stats? What are the studies or the data that's coming out? I did this with a media mentoring client. I also have a PR agency, but I know a lot of people can't afford agency prices, so I mentor business owners on how to do this themselves. And I had a mentoring client. It was the fastest media hit we've ever done, because we started working together Monday morning at 9 a.m. We had a call. We did this search about women or mothers making money at home. And we found an article that said 4 out of 10 mothers are the breadwinners in the household. So I said, perfect, let's use that, because this client of mine teaches women how to make money from home through online courses. So I said, perfect, let's use that. And literally 3 hours later, by 12 o'clock that afternoon, we got her on TV in the local Charlotte market. And she was talking about how women can make money from home. But the big hook of that pitch was this study that just came out that said 4 out of 10 women in the house are bread makers or breadwinners. Maybe they make bread too, but they're breadwinners. And so she came on and she said, yes, this is a stat, and this is how you can do it too.
That's fantastic. And I really like that we should be looking for things that are relevant right now. And I would actually think that it should be something that was more on the evergreen side of things. So I very much like that you said it should be time specific, because that does give you that edge and it pushes it forward so that they're not putting it off until later. I feel like that's an incredibly good nugget that I'm taking away from this.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on the outlet too. Like, I feel like podcasts, they're more like general expertise. And during the interview, you can give different timely examples depending on what's happening. But when we talk about news, like TV, newspapers, online outlets, you have to be like very current. Magazines, like the print magazines, work 3 months in advance, but all magazines have, their website too. So I think that's the biggest thing, is you want to make sure that your pitch is super current to where the person reading it says, oh my gosh, if we don't do this right now, we're going to miss the opportunity.
I love that. So as we're stepping forward and we're creating these pitches, we're doing our research and we're reaching out to people, can you give us some advice on how we should be doing that? Should we be messaging multiple companies? Obviously, we're going to tailor it to each specific thing, but should we only be going after one at a time? Should we be going after a handful? What does that look like in terms of success?
No, that's a good question, because a lot of people, unfortunately, lots of public relations agencies do this, because I was on the receiving end of it. They will use software to get a list of 1,000 people and send them all the same email at the same time. They are not fooling anybody, and those emails do not get returned. So what I suggest, you do have to reach out to people one by one. Yes, that's very time consuming. However, if you connect with these people on LinkedIn or Twitter, all the journalists are on Twitter. If you connect on Twitter and you follow them and you chat with them, when you have a pitch, you can give them a little heads up on Twitter, like, hey, I'm in your inbox. I just sent you an email. That's part of how I got Amy Porterfield on CNN, which I'd love to talk to you about on a different day. But that is how I did it. I sent an email. I know they get thousands of emails a day. So I popped a little tweet to the host and the producer and the booker. And I said, hey, I just sent you an email with, a story idea about XYZ. So, be on the lookout for it. And I think that's the best way to do it. I wouldn't call. People don't like getting calls, like unless it's crazy breaking news and you need to get a hold of somebody right away. But email is definitely best. Social media is great, because now we're more likely to pay attention to our notifications on social media than we are in our inbox. But yeah, and I would definitely hit up a couple of people at the same outlet, just because one may be on vacation, one may not like the story, but one might like the story. One may resonate with it better because of their past experience or their personal experience, whatever it is.
That's fantastic. Okay, so once we've created these pitches, we've identified who we're reaching out to, and we've gone through that process, how long should we anticipate for waiting to hear back from them? Will everybody respond? What does that look like?
That's a great question. Most people will not respond. I mean, honestly, I would say 8 out of 10 times you will just get crickets. And I like to use the Boomerang app in Gmail to remind myself to follow up. So just like once a week, for maybe 2-3 weeks, I'm going to follow up, and maybe once out of 10 times you'll get a no, and then 1 out of 10 times you'll get a yes. It's very competitive. I mean, you got to think, so many people are seeing this. You're not paying for it. It's like a free commercial. It's a word of mouth referral. It's a third party endorsement. Like, it's competitive. So 1 out of 10 is good. It's not bad, but just be prepared to get a lot of people ignoring you, because there is a lot of competition.
Let's talk about follow-up, because I know some people think I've sent the message, it's in their hands, what will be, but other people very much like to make sure that, did you receive my email? What do you think about this? We want that feedback. So in terms of reaching back out, you said every week or so, for just a couple of weeks, you're going to reach out. What does that look like? Are you replying to the email? Are you sending a new email? What are you saying in these?
I like to just reply to it. Again, like, it comes back to me in, my Gmail through the Boomerang app. And then I will just reply. And I won't say like, did you get this? What do you think? I'll try to add, some kind of nugget of value or a little extra angle, or I'll say something about a recent story they did. It's definitely a time-consuming job if you do it strategically, but that's the way you're going to get coverage. So I think it's a great way to follow up without being annoying, because a lot of people like, hey, Want to make sure you saw this. Didn't want you to miss this, which it depends on who you're emailing and what your relationship with that person is. But 9 times out of 10, I suggest, saying, here are a couple more talking points, in regards to whatever just happened, or whatever little tidbits you can add to make your pitch a little stronger than it was the week before.
Okay, so let's talk specifically about these pitches, because we are trying to keep it very story related. We're trying to make sure it is story oriented and not facts necessarily about what we're trying to pitch, the company, the products, the services. So in relation to creating these pitches, should it be very, very short? Should we have a little more information? What does this look like?
Yeah, honestly, the shorter the better, just because if they're interested, then that's when they'll call you or they'll email you and you can follow up with more. Like, you don't want to overwhelm them with so much information, but you do want to give them enough that it's like, okay, we could do this. So if it is, something like an event, like if you're holding an event in person, then you want to give them the who, what, when, where, why. And you want to format it in a way where it's easy to skim and read. So like the headline of where and the headline of when. You don't want to put it all in one paragraph. So I like to break my paragraphs up. I like to bold the things that are most important, use italics on things to like emphasize a point, but you don't want it to be long and boring. You just want to grab their attention to where they hit reply, to where they call you, but you do want to give them enough information and you want to make it clear. I always end all of my pitches with like something along the lines of, let me know whatever you need from me to make this possible. And I will share this coverage with my audience on social media and my email list. Because that's a big thing. A lot of people, when they earn exposure, they don't share it, which is so dumb on so many levels. I can't even tell you. Like, first of all, it's inconsiderate of the outlet and the person giving you the coverage. Second of all, it's bad PR for you. Like, if you're earning exposure, you should be telling people about it. Like, don't assume people saw it. So I always let them know that, because I have had clients before who will not share their coverage on their social media. And then I go back to the journalist to pitch another angle and they're like, oh no, we're not covering your client anymore because last time we did, they didn't share it. Like, that has happened. So you have to end with like, hey, I'm going to do everything I can to help you do your job, and I'm going to share it on my social media.
I love that. And I feel like it's such an important point to point out that we do need to be representing the things that we've just done as entrepreneurs and as people who are being interviewed. Because if we're not talking about it, nobody knows. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned inside of my career in business, is that if I'm not talking about it, friends, family, students, clients, members, they have no idea unless I go out of my way to make sure I tell them. So I'm loving all these tips that you're giving to us today. We have to make sure that we start small and that we build out from there. Now, as we are kind of emailing up the ranks, should we be sending some of the coverage we have from the smaller, more local things to the bigger platforms, or should we just go with that pitch?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. That's another thing that I include like at the bottom, specifically when I pitch podcasts, because I've been on some pretty notable podcasts. So I'll be like, hey, and I'll link to the episodes. I'll say, hey, I've also been on Smart Passive Income twice, EO Fire, Boss Babe, and Boss Mom. I share all of these episodes with my social media audience of 100,000 plus. So something like that. And then I hyperlink to the episodes, because then it's like, okay, this person has credibility. They're getting exposure on a regular basis. Like, they're not going to come on my outlet or my platform and totally flop. So I think it's important to mention that for sure.
That's fantastic. Any final thoughts when it comes to getting yourself on these news platforms?
Yeah, I would be happy to share a resource with your audience. I can share, I just mentioned Smart Passive Income. I can share the exact pitch, word for word, that I sent to get on Pat Flynn's podcast. So if you just go to podcastclout.com/Pat, you can get it word for word. I'll drop it into your inbox.
Perfect. And we'll link that down below for everybody, because that is incredibly helpful to kind of dissect and break down what you've done so that we can do that as well. And speaking of learning from you, I know that you have resources and different things available for people to now take the next steps forward. So where can everybody hang out with you online?
Yeah, so besides that one resource, you can find me on social media. I'm at Christina all day on just about all of the platforms. I also have my own podcast called Become a Media Maven, where I break down all of these things. And then I also have a free 1-hour masterclass where I really take you behind the scenes of what I've done for my clients, and I go into specifics with stories like we did today. And you can access that at earnmedianow.com.
Christina's coming back for 2 more episodes where she's going to be breaking down how she got one of my favorite people, the Amy Porterfield, on CNN, and how you can be using the press that you're getting right now to then get more press in the future, and how you can be extending the life and reach of the press that you already have, as well as an episode on how she got her TEDx talk from her LinkedIn account. We're going to be breaking down how you can be using your social media to get press coverage as well, so hit that subscribe and notification bell. We're dropping brand new videos daily to help you level up on your social media and take the time commitment out of being present on social so you can get back to running your business. We'll see you in the next episode. Close enough, baby.